What's up, everybody? Welcome back to my channel, Ms. Be Ecstatic, where we explore all things divination, astrology, and I am your student astrologer, Michelle Mondragon, and today I'm going to be talking to you, adding to our Venus Diaries studies. Um, this is number 3 of a series that I started following Venus through um, this new Venus star point cycle, the Venus petal. And so I just wanted to do a update because we have some new aspects to explore. So in the beginning of the Venus cycle, we started off with retracing and finding Venus in the same degree where she began her last 8-year cycle. So and closing that out and starting a new one. And there's there were some things that happened with that particular alignment that involved Saturn and the North Node. So I wanted to focus in particular on, okay, so part of the Venus transit is, her going into uh, retrograde, shadow, station, and then retracing her steps over the shadow degrees. And then also having her meeting with the sun, the Cazimi, and being in like combust with the sun, so not being seen. She's in the underworld. She's invisible. She's not her gifts are not being dispensated. She's not sharing. She's not active in the sky. She's not sharing her blessings as much in the world. So, and she's kind of getting new orders, new messages, new codes to program values for this new cycle of her journey. And um, yeah, and if you look back on the previous Venus Diaries, I'm not going to do it here, but I go through all of the specific degrees, houses, points, like the zodiacal places that this is happening in the sky and where it will be going. And there's graphics and images that you can kind of use to track your own, superimpose it on your own natal chart. And there's also some links and free resources online so that you can have access to the same resources that I share on those diaries. So go back and we talked about in the first one, oh yeah, no, maybe it was the second one. We talked about what not to do in retrograde, some common themes that showed up in my personal life. And yeah, so this isn't necessarily about a series about the star points. It's more just all things or themes to do with Venus. And because I'm a student astrologer and I am using my own experiences to compare with the transits that are happening. This is my personal diary and I'm sharing it with you so that we can learn together and hopefully someone will find some value in it also. But also this is a way that I can personalize my education, my teachings. So it's not just that I'm reading something or referencing in a guide or Googling it online or repeating something that I heard on a lecture or webinar. It's something that I have all of that information stored. I'm feeling it. I'm connecting to the planetary signatures and following the alignments and aspects and um, relating to what I know and then having ownership of my own astrology, essentially. So it's kind of like journaling, and I'm really not great at. I used to be really good at journaling. I used to do it and be very disciplined about it, but it wouldn't be like a discipline. It'd be like, I want to journal. It's time to journal. And things change, people change, interests change, focus changes, capacity changes. So I don't do that as much anymore. In fact, I did start a Venus journal and I have barely made a dent in it. I have made quick notes. Quick note was the most recent one, but some more um, intentional and in-depth. I have actually a ton of journals, to be honest. Notes and journals. Okay, so anyways, this is not a video about notes and journals. Um, so what I wanted to highlight is the Venus and Saturn cycle. So I have noticed with this retrograde, excuse me, with the newest Venus cycle, um, there's different names for it. Um, for example, hold on a second. Some use the word petal, some use the word star, Venus, calendar. Yeah, 8-year cycle. Come on. Maybe there's other names too, but I've seen flower, petal, and star as the main things that it's referred to. Okay, anyway, I'll come back to that. So what I've noticed is Saturn's interaction in this particular cycle going forward, closing out the previous one that was started back in 2017 and the one that we're starting now. And so with the Venus Saturn conjunction, so let's say the Cazimi that Venus went through, which met the sun, was in Aries at 2 degrees. And so shortly, like before that, she was with Saturn conjuncting in Pisces with the North Node. So Saturn has, and the nodes have been part of the dialogue of the relationship and the downloading and imprinting of this, the new template that we're moving forward with for the next 8 years with Venus and some of the themes that will influence what we'll see. Okay, so I want to follow up on Saturn and Venus and their relationship. So we saw, I'm just looking at my notes, so if I'm looking down, that's what's going on. We saw Venus conjunct Saturn, North Node, and Neptune, and the moon was close by at, I forget which degree, I'll have to look at that, but this was in Pisces, and this was, hold on, I'm going to pause and get the chart up. Okay, thank you for your patience. I just wanted to bring up the chart so I can reference it. I need visuals. I like visuals. Notes are great, but it might just be easier and more interesting if I show you. So I'm going to share my screen. Where is share my screen? There it is. Okay. All right. So this is the chart for the first conjunction, and with this one is with Venus direct. So Saturn, Neptune, and you can see like the node is close by. So this is back in January, the beginning of the year. And I wanted to also share, well, we'll get to that in a second. I'm going to share a little bit of the news, some of the mundane things that were happening that we can see in the world events that might key us or cue us into associations, patterns of association. But I'll start with just the some of the things that we can, like if you are someone who has Venus conjunct Saturn in your horoscope and your natal chart, we'll give you a little brief breakdown on what you might expect. So this aspect is often found in talented, sorry, pause one more time. The heel? Okay, so I put my phone on Do Not Disturb. I was getting all kinds of distractions. I really wanted to talk about Venus square today, but we have to kind of build a little background and structure around that to get, some texture. Okay, so Venus Saturn conjunctions in a personal horoscope, in a personal natal chart, can often show a talented artist. Saturn gives form and structure and concrete practical expression to artistic tendencies of Venus, as well as the patience necessary for attention to detail. Since Saturn rules time as well as space, musicians can be favored by a good sense of rhythm, harmony, and melody. Let's see. Many of the attributes of this aspect are related to the sign of Libra, which is ruled by Venus and in which Saturn is exalted. So generationally, there's a whole bunch of us out there. I have um, Saturn in Libra and Pluto in Libra, and that's a Venus ruled part of the sky. And a bunch of us generationally have that configuration. And we are people going into midlife. And like, I think we're considered Gen X, pretty sure Gen X. And so it also shows, so personally, again, ambition for money can be present as well as a desire to improve social and financial status through marriage and partnerships. When the desire is pursued with a sense of fair play, all parties concerned can benefit. However, used negatively, it leads to negatives to marry for financial consideration only. They must be wary of tendencies to use others to gratify their own emotional needs. Much will depend upon the rest of the chart, of course. So, oh, some other things that it said, on the negative side, aspects can lead to depression. Um, and an inclination to feel unloved and unappreciated. So that's Sun conjunct Saturn in your personal chart. What I wanted to do is share with you also. So here is the chart. I mean, and so this was not so distant past, right? And there's a lot of really interesting things. I mean, we've gone through a lot, people. If you're here, you made it, congratulations. Like you can do anything. We've been through a lot. All right, so I'm going to stop sharing this page. Hello. And what I wanted to do was share a little bit about, like, look and see what was going on. Safari. I'll just share the whole desktop. Okay, we can close that out. Bring this down. All right, this might look familiar. This is from one of the first Venus Diaries. I shared this resource and gave another, so this is a chart of movement, the full cycle. And they have another one. Well, anyway, this is not what I want to talk about right now. Easily distracted today. I wanted to share with you news that happened. That's October. Here it is, January. So in January, on the day of the conjunction with Saturn, Venus conjunct Saturn, we saw in the world potential delays in Israel-Hamas ceasefire due to last-minute snag, focus on the farewell address for Biden, obviously. Powerball jackpot. So we see like a huge amount of money being speculated and gambled. In that chart, January, yeah, the sun's with Pluto, is approaching Pluto in Aquarius. What else? Capricorn at 29 degrees is like the top of the mountain. So like, how big can your bag get? Right? Oh, crazy. And I feel like I see that, like, I feel like that's the norm now. Um, okay, yeah. And then Saturn is with Venus, but Neptune's there and the North Node also at 29 degrees. So there's like this, you know, knowing no bounds, just like Neptune is boundless. North Node is like the dragon's head, all consuming, that knows no end. Venus um, in Pisces is just like, is exalted, just loves it there. And so she's just, you know, financial resources and values or everything's at its all-time high. Um, and let's see. And at the time of this chart, you see it's a Leo rising, and all of this is happening in the eighth house of speculation. So interesting tones that go along with the conjunction. You would think that there might be like some boundaries, but see, Saturn's not happy in Pisces. Saturn's not strong in Pisces. So all these other elements are taking precedence. And the sun is not exactly helping Saturn because the sun's not exactly happy there either. It's cold. All right, so very interesting. And Venus is supposed to be diplomacy. It's supposed to be, so that's what's happening is there's like a breakdown in diplomacy. There's a stall out in negotiations and a little bit of a power struggle and like who's gonna garner the control, who's controlling the narrative, and then the jackpot, like how big can your bag get? All right, so that is the Venus North Node Saturn conjunction in Pisces. So that was the very first one, and Venus was direct in this configuration. So this is the beginning of their synodic cycle for 2025. Now, we're going to go to a different chart. This one's pretty crazy. So we did the conjunction. We're going to do the sextile. I hope the share is working. Okay, so Venus sextile Saturn. The last one was November 2024. This one, so I think in your life, what was happening um, in January, what particular themes were standing out for you that you can tie this particular synodic beginning? Okay, so the Venus star cycle starts. Well, anyway, let's go to the sextile. Is July 6th. There's a lot that happens in between, though. No, I think I need to do. Okay, well, I'm just going to roll with this. No, 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 no. Because no, there's something else I wanted to cover. Sorry. Okay, yes, it was April. So Venus again met Saturn. That's what I wanted to get. We're still on conjunctions, folks. Okay, still on conjunctions. Sorry. So the first one was in January, direct. And then they met again here. Can I annotate? They met here, also direct. So two different houses. No, sorry, two different time periods. They met twice. What was the last one? Was she Tense? I might have it confused, you guys. Maybe it's this one. Yeah, okay, that's what I thought. She's retrograde. I wanted to show that the one after like in January, the April 7th one, she meets with Saturn in Pisces right here, and she's retrograde. Mercury retrograde. Again, still with the North Node, and Neptune just ingressed into Aries for the first time in our lifetimes. Wacky, crazy, so much cool astrology to cover, you guys. I'm sorry if I kind of get a little, um, because it's not just, I'm trying to focus on Venus, but so many things happen around her. And this is informing us of our, again, the template that we're moving forward with into areas that we haven't seen before, like informing our value system and relationships with ourselves, the outside world, and our most personal, intimate relationships. Okay, anyway, so here she is in retrograde. Now, what can we see April, right? April 7th, I think is what it was. Thanks for being here, you guys. Thank you for watching, liking, commenting, and subscribing. Thanks for following me on my journey, tracking Venus and my astrological, do-it-yourself homegrown astrology learning. So on April 7th, headlines, trade policies, and maybe that's when I don't know, I'm pretty sure he's been talking about it for a while, so I don't think that's necessarily new, but concerns about cyber defense weaknesses, physical activity and cancer comes up. There's a measles outbreak in Texas. Yeah, I think there's just a lot of posturing. Um, so we see relationships, US-Iran talks, NATO relations, um, Trump and tariffs. So what else? Health. So we know that, what else? Well, there's some things about health in here too. Let me look at the chart. Well, yeah, so the South Node's in Virgo, and all of these planets are, retrograde connecting to the North Node in Pisces. Okay. So there's outbreaks. Okay. So for me personally, I went on a little bit of a health kick journey. I did a detox during this time period, and I did my first parasite cleanse around in this cycle as well in April. I did it in April. No, I was starting to prepare it in April. Yeah, I was starting to have more things signal for a focus on health or letting go. Um, that South Node that's the area that we should be letting go, right? The tail of the dragon, things that are releasing karmically, being dissolved. In this case, Virgo being health, digestion, um, yeah, stomach, purifying Virgo. So those are some things that, take a look during that time frame in April. April is spring. We usually start lots of things in the spring with the Aries energy, the sun in Aries, and look and see if that was something that you were doing or contemplating. So Venus conjunct Saturn retrograde could be reviewing things that were happening and with negotiations and relationships internationally, right? From January. And that's definitely part of the talks here. Some of them anyway. Yeah. So I won't spend a lot of time on this date. You can do your own research. So it was super easy when I did decide to start my actual detox because we went from the conjunctions to sextiles. So Venus sextile Saturn with Neptune, it's going to be a theme until next year. Um, from Taurus. No, wait, is that right? Let me get to it. I have my notes, but again, I'm much more visual. So we're going to move to the trines or sextiles, sorry. I didn't do trines, but not in my notes, but we'll look at it. We'll look at it here. So here, all right, um, AI, take note. We're at the part where we're beginning to speak about Saturn and Venus in sextile. When was the last time? So it's again, November sextiles, 2024, July 6th. All right. So here's our chart of, yeah, Venus in Gemini, first degree, and sextiling Saturn and Aries. So the beginning of June is when I finally actually like started to execute. Months before I was kind of preparing, and then uh, the 1st of June I did a month-long cleanse, and I was just coming off of it at the end of June. And it was so easy to follow through. It was very supported to do nurturing things, to like discipline what I was putting in my mouth, discipline my um like physically doing things to improve my looks, um, albeit small and not big or dramatic in any way. Like it was a time at the beginning of July that felt really, really good, really in flow, energized. Um, and we can see that Venus was with actually Uranus, although we're not doing Uranus today, we're just doing Saturn. Um, and it's her home, it's one of her homes, right? Where she's comfortable, she's in her domicile, she's she's and she's with Uranus that's leveling her up. So Uranus has a lot of different characteristics that lots of different ways that it can show up, but it definitely is a leveler up. It usually disrupts to level up is what I'm trying to say out here. So she's met with Saturn several times. She's gone through Aries. She's taken rest at home and revitalized herself, and she's downloaded more information um, with Uranus. And then you'll see too that right now they're finishing up being together, Uranus and Venus in Gemini as well. So two houses over a month and a half together. It's I haven't done like the research on that specifically, but I don't think that it's that common to happen that way. Um, and we're not going to see it again because Uranus is ingressing into has ingressed already into Gemini. It will retrograde, but it'll stay in Gemini, and so we won't see that repetition of Uranus and Venus, and then Uranus and Venus in, I'm sorry, Uranus and Venus in Taurus, and then Uranus and Venus in Gemini, again, in such a condensed amount of time, for who knows how long. So anyway, I just wanted to point that out. And here I am wanting to point it out, but I don't have my pointer. So anyway, here's that sextile. And, this I think is where I believe it was 10 degrees or something close to it that Mercury is, I think Mercury's in shadow. Oh no, 4 degrees. So, and now we have Mars. Okay, so Mars in Virgo too also like had me like because Mars is my chart ruler, it had me doing a lot of things having to do with physicality, health, well-being. I was taking a lot of action in that way, and I was getting a lot of stuff done before like noon. And this is something that I'm going to address in a different series, in a Mars series, but that Mars approaching the South Node, the closer it got, the shittier I felt. And so we'll talk about that later. But all in all, that sextile energy was really good. And so I'm going to read out and we'll look again, like personal and mundane. So, and I'm using the Astrologer's Handbook for the aspects. This is by Francis Sakoyan and Louise Acker. And that's a square. Sorry, I didn't mark the sextile in my book. Sorry, guys. But I mean, look at the date, look around that date, and what were you feeling? What were you experiencing? Have you been keeping your own journal on astrology transits? Okay. Venus sextile Saturn. Um, it gives, okay, so Saturn gives concrete expression to the Venusian aesthetic tendencies. Let's see, natives are loyal to their friends, loved ones, and serious, constant in the expression of their emotions. The aspect is favorable and enduring marriage. So you might have experienced like a good time, like a good ease, flow, and contentment in your relationships during this time. I would say I definitely did. Personally, I was kind of like getting around chatting around my neighborhood, and let's see what else. Mhm. Many of the positive aspects of Libra, again, attributing Libra stuff to Venusian sextile. There's a capacity to sacrifice personal happiness for the sake of duty or happiness of others. In some cases, grace, refinement, and good good breeding. are evident, meaning maybe you're getting it on, baby. Maybe everybody's so in flow with each other and having such a good time, um, that they're having a good time. I don't know. All right. These people have the ability to make money through their professions and generally skillful in business affairs. Since they are frugal and use good judgment in the field of finance, they always get their money's worth. Okay, so that's the sextile in your personal chart. Let's take a look at July 6th. After 4th of July celebrations, right? Oh, flooding. Shit. That's right. Woo! Well, we can take a look at the chart and look for that specific kind of indication too. We know already that Uranus was at peak, 29 degrees, getting ready to move into Gemini. So it's at that anaretic degree in Taurus, which is, you know, the earth, all things having to do with that. And Saturn, Neptune, 1 degree, Pisces 20. Yeah. Neptune, well, those are in sextile too. Okay, well, we'll take a look at that again. But so Trump, Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu, and the potential impact of Tropical Storm Chantal. So again, foreign relations with diplomats. Yeah. Was it positive though? Let's see. Additionally, there was news about political party being formed by Elon Musk. Oh yeah. That was, yeah, I don't know, honestly, because I'm not on Twitter. I don't know if he actually has fallen through or followed through with all of that. Gold Cup from where Mexico defeated the United States in soccer, football. Um, so here we're talking about taxes, right? I think it's the big beautiful bill that they did actually end up passing. So we're talking about seriousness in relationships, communication, um, winners and losers, you know? Are we gonna are we gonna come together in union, or are we not finding our way to harmony, you know? Okay. All right, so that is the sextile. Let's talk about the trine. We'll just briefly look at it because I really didn't bring up any dates or take any notes on that. Where's the events? There it is. Let's look at Venus trine. Okay, there's one coming up. Okay, October. So October, we know that there was already a lot of tension in 2024. That's when um, like the Israel conflict, I think Israel and Hamas, um, Iran and Gaza, all of that kind of like hit its peak. So that was 2024. So we'll have one coming up. So we'll get to that in a minute then. I want to talk about the squares first. So the square is something that we're building up to right now. So that's why I want to talk about it. Um, the last time we saw a square was again in October, the end of October of last year. again, this is for Saturn. This is the synodic cycle of Venus and Saturn coming together. So we'll look at that chart. And so we're building up to a couple of things here. There's like not really like a dull, quiet moment in astrology right now. But at the moment, excuse me. So Saturn, 1 degree 37 minutes, Venus, 1 degree 37 minutes. Still really close. Oh my gosh. Sorry, you guys. My circles aren't pretty. Like they're just a couple of minutes within conjunction, but they still don't meet exact until next year. So wild to me. So here they are in their square. So what can we expect in relationships, finances, diplomacy, in our own lives, and in the outside world? And we're already seeing quite a bit of financial news come out because of that first bill that happened in July. It's been a theme actually from the beginning of the year because we have a new president, right? Donald Trump that has set his agenda in place and has been working towards that. And 6 months in, 7 months in, here we are, and there's a big, beautiful bill. And people are talking about it a lot, quite a bit online right now, and some of the implications of the the agenda he's putting in place. We're actually seeing, which is what's so fascinating right now. Right now, markets are at their all-time high, both in the stock market and the crypto market. Prices for food, prices for rents are still high. They may not be at their all-time high. They might have come down, experienced some volatility, but it would be interesting to see in the next, I'm filming this July 30th, so in the next 2-3 days, what the square kind of looks like. In terms of relationships, personal relationships, definitely feel that there's a there's been a need to communicate more boundaries around personal limitations with relationships, like energy given, fucks given, right? Or like how much care, concern you put into somebody else, to people outside of yourself versus taking care of yourself. And definitely felt like I hit a wall over the last couple of days in terms of giving and sharing my energy to the people around me. And then I just spent a couple of days just sending messages like, hey, I'm at limit. I'm at capacity. I need to take a step back. And so that's why I was like, you know what? What's going on in relationships? Where are we in the Venus cycle? For the last week, I've been thinking I got to do an update on the Venus Diaries. So that is something that I have experienced so far, and wanted to communicate about that. Yeah. So we've had already Gemini in make its ingress. It's almost a full degree into Gemini. And Venus was with him through Venus was in there the entire time of his ingress, and she just made her way into Cancer in the last 2 days. So let's see, what else do I want to say about this chart? We're preparing for a Mercury Cazimi. Mercury's currently retrograde. The sun actually, yeah, it will have already, I think tomorrow, actually, the 31st is, so in this chart, Mercury just had a Cazimi, and in this chart, Mars has already passed over that south node. Thank God it's like moving away. But we still feel the effects. Yeah, so there's a lot of focus around the heart, home, communication, um, getting to the root of things with the moon in Scorpio, getting to the bottom of it, and the moon does not really like being in Scorpio. I believe it's in detriment, or it's in exile. And so this Saturn square Venus chart for August 1st is pretty interesting, a lot going on, but it so it'll all influence how we experience that square. The the B sextile here of the outer planets is locked in. Um, and so far I feel like it's a good thing. It's been interesting. So Venus in Cancer, I don't, it's not, it's not, it's restful, right? But in the aspects that are kind of happening here with the semi-sextile and semi-square and then a full square, there just feels like there's pressure on her. And then there's another square building over here to Mars. The further it gets to the later degrees of Virgo, it'll square Venus. So and with Jupiter there also, Jupiter is at, is exalted in Cancer, but Jupiter has both good and both or and malefic kind of energies, right? I mean, it's a benefic. It's the Don't get me wrong, it is the benefic, but it also can do things in excess. And there might be a tendency to want to um, just tune things out, hide, cover, seek comfort where you can. But there's really not anything else that's supporting that kind of action. It's really more like we need to talk about what's going on. We need to talk about the heart of the matter. Like the themes that are more supported here are having to do with transforming, alchemizing what is uncomfortable. Um, Communicating our boundaries. Saturn is helping to define what is uncomfortable, what is not okay, what is like, and this with, I really feel like Jupiter just expanded the connection with children and relationships and all the things that are Venus related in the Cancer house, which is home, family. Um, and it amplified it just to an extent that it was like too much. So I don't know how many of you have children or other relationships that are close and intimate that maybe just felt that same kind of irritation. That's how I was experiencing this particular square. And just so you know, we are also going to be experiencing this square again in December. Yeah, it'll come back to right before Christmas. Again, a period of time where we're with families, relationships, more themes around relationships. So keep in mind what's happening right now in this time frame around this Venus square, because it will come back around in December to be looked at. So if we don't set our boundaries now, if we're not clear in communicating our limitations emotionally, mentally, energetically, then by the time December comes around, we could be a wreck, and or we could have mastered it by that time and set some good boundaries that people respect, and we just graduate to another level. And okay, so I want to just talk about let's take a look at the next square real quick while we're on oops, on the topic of squares. This chart's pretty crazy too. So we have this huge Sag pile up. Mars and the moon are in the mix. And Saturn in Pisces. So Saturn goes, I don't know how far back into Pisces Saturn goes. But he's already made his retrograde and he's now direct going back into Pisces or Aries, excuse me. And that is also the case with Neptune. Neptune being at the analytic degree again, joy. And so like that's peak illusion, peak rose-colored glasses, deception, deceit, um, perhaps spiritual, you know, ecstasy, enlightenment. I don't know. This is also a time where, people might be um, obviously partaking in celebrations. So it might be like more excess. Um, again, because Saturn is not happy in Pisces, it's not strong in Pisces, it's not going to be very good at detecting when it's too much, it's not going to be able to have as much power, willpower. So that with the Venus square, again, my annotation, this is getting long. I don't know how much of this is me rambling. I'm hoping that some of this is useful and making sense. Um, it is helping me. So thank you for being here. Thank you for listening and watching and participating, leaving a comment about how you're experiencing how you experienced the conjunction in January, the one in April, the one in where, yeah, the one in April, the sextile in July, the square that we're coming up on right now. And if you're watching this in December, like how are you experiencing the December square? So leave your comments below. Let's see. So yeah, so also the one thing I wanted to touch on this particular chart is that the planet that is ruling both Pisces and Sag is Jupiter over here. And while it's not making direct aspects, it's not making any aspects to these planets, it is connecting with Chiron almost exactly, like by a minute. And that's Chiron retrograde. So there's a highlight of a wound. Okay. And where's Mars? And Mars is in Capricorn. We'll get to that. But what I wanted to talk about this is that Jupiter is the ruling planet of these houses. So its energy, exalted, remember, is dispensing into the planets that are in Sag, which is Mercury. So it's having influence on Mercury. It's having influence on Venus and the Sun. And because of its connection to Pisces, it's also dispensing powerfully to Neptune and Saturn. So the one thing that stands out about this, again, is like everything that Jupiter touches expands for good or not. So the wound, it's going to highlight, again, this is uncomfortable. It's a square over to Chiron and Aries. But the dispensing factor in these other houses, Jupiter ruled houses, Sagittarius and Pisces, is at that 22 degree. And one of the people I've done webinars with, oh my gosh, my book is upside down. Nicola Stravana, what's his name? Oh my gosh, I'm going to butcher it because it's Stojanovic. Yeah, he did like the degree theory. Astrology is one of the teachers I have done webinars and classes from, and I've purchased and listened to him speak about the degrees in the chart, and the 22nd degree of any planet and any placement of the chart is the kill or be killed number degree. So I don't think it matters where it is. Let me see if I can find it in Pisces. Oh, we'll look at it in Cancer. No, that's not how the theory works. Where is the degree? Well, anyway, I mean, it's pretty commonly known if you've studied with Lotta and some of the teachers that she's had on, that the 22nd degree is kill or be killed degree. I think it's a Capricorn degree. So my concerns with this is that even though Jupiter is a benefic, it's at this degree, it's dispensing over in a square to the 22nd degree of Chiron, and um, it's dispensing its energy to Saturn and Venus. So we're talking about relationships, we're talking about high emotions, we're talking about diplomacy, harmony, and things not being harmonious. Things are not, everything's conflated. There's tension. There's obviously an element of potential violence. And this could be in your own life or it could show up in the external world. And it's just something that stood out to me when I was looking at the squares. So we don't have this in play at the moment for the August 1st square, but this is my concern with a reoccurring square with these other elements in play. So if you're already having issues with romantic relationship, partnership, work, authority, boss, things like that, or any kind of relationship, take note with how that is already showing up in your life right now and like put boundaries in place right away because there's a good chance that this theme could come up again and someone can get hurt. So that's one of the concerns I have with this square that's coming up with Saturn is that Jupiter dispensing planet into the those houses. So of course you want to look where this might be happening in your own personal chart, but this is just a general overview and recap. And the last thing I want to say, I did not cover trines in this episode. It's already kind of getting long. So the last thing that I want to share, um, sorry, I'm so slow with the annotations. The last thing I want to share is a chart for um, the next Cazimi. Is that right? Yeah, the next time Sun, the Venus meets with the Sun, because it's also a really interesting chart. And no, wait, no, I said Cazimi, but I think this is the one I wanted. No, no, it was definitely the Sun. Okay, so yeah, January 6th. So this doesn't necessarily have to do with Saturn, but I just wanted to show this chart with this crazy stellium in Capricorn. Um, and I the dispositing planet is going to be Saturn during this time. So even though Saturn's not directly making an aspect with Venus, Venus is under his rulership during her meeting with the Sun. And with that Mars there too, Mars is exalted in Capricorn. It's and they've had their conjunction. So there's a reset in there is a story that's being built up between that started in January that is building up and it is coming to a culmination again in January, this upcoming January 6th. So um, this is pretty much what I wanted to bring attention to and share and get out of my head because it's been sitting in my head. All of these personal experiences I've been having and also all the news that's been I think there was something else I wanted to touch on with the news. Hold on one second. I don't know if it's really all that relevant right now. Oh, yeah, no, it's really not. It's just more of the same. It's just in the mundane world, we see an ongoing narrative since October of last year that has to do with Venus. Again, many of her attributes come from Libra, right? Or shared with Libra. Diplomacy, harmony, negotiations, peace, um, yeah, relationships, things like that. And so in the outside world, we see that conversation has had many dimensions, aspects that have played out so far, and it's going to continue into January 2026, culminate in January 2026 in a big way. But then March, I think, is when we'll see Saturn and Venus come together again. So that's my Venus Diaries recap and highlight on the Venus square. We did cover the conjunction, the sextile, and the square, and the relationship between Venus and Saturn. And yeah, stay tuned for, gosh, if you've made it this far, you guys are rock stars. Thank you so much. I knew I didn't, get myself done up for nothing. Thank you. I do have a Mars in motion diaries in the works. And oh, I did want to show you well, you'll see it in the thumbnail. I'll just share it one more time really quick. Share my screen. Yes, share. Okay, here it is. Okay, so this is something that I've been working on. I have lots of things that are, I have a lot of things going on in the 12th house having to do with the Saturn and Venus and the North Node. And this is kind of the image is a little, maybe there we go. Maybe you can see it better now. This is my dog, Itzley. He is my companion, my sidekick. He goes with me everywhere. He is a part of my personal healing journey from relationships. I'm an empty nester and I've been divorced more than once, most recently in the last 2 years and or a year and a half. Anyway, so he has been part of my inspiration, part of my journey. And of course, you'll see too, or you have seen a progression of me experimenting and playing with AI. And so I'm not quite ready to launch into anything yet, but you'll see a lot more of these themes kind of melting and blending together creatively, and I'll be sharing it this way. So this is part of the thumbnail that you'll see on this video. And also I have one um, for the Mars in action. So I love this one because they made me another dog. Um, so this is something that I have in the works that we'll be looking at as well as for Mercury. And it's something that I'd like to do, continue with each of the planets. But, Venus has been a handful lately. So it's like more than enough. All right. So thanks for joining me. Thanks for being here, commenting, liking, sharing. And we'll see you again in the next one. Thanks.